Jam, everyone. This is Dr. Josh. I'm here at Digital Assets at Duke in Abu Dhabi. Wow. And I'm here with the famous Jimmie Lenz, who's not only a famous finance professor over there at Duke, but he's a Web3 OG. Met him last year at Fashion Week in Milan at the Horizon Labs event. And just an impressive guy all around, a believer in Web3. And he also built an amazing conference that I wasn't able to attend, but he got all the big players there in the government and the university space and like the official space. You know what I mean? So how's it going? How was? How was?
Going great. Thanks, by the way. That's fantastic.
Well, Jimmie, we all know you, I think, in the crypto space, even though you don't know most of us.
I know a lot of people.
Yeah, you know a lot of people.
I know a lot of people. It's funny. I was here, and Adam Estrelli was here, and so we started talking a little bit. We've known each other for a while, and all of a sudden, hey, oh yeah, I know that guy. Oh yeah, what's Rob doing? Oh, what's Colin doing? It's a small community at the end of the day. It's not that big.
Why? Why is it a small community at the end of the day when it's such a transformative technology?
Yeah, I think it's because it's transformative. That's exactly why. Okay. There are some people that will accept that, some people who will aggressively pursue it and aggressively embrace it, and then there's everybody else. They're just waiting to be dragged along. They will get dragged along, but they're just waiting for that.
Okay, but it seems like who's being dragged along or doesn't want to be dragged along is our country, the United States. Here in Abu Dhabi, you had some big name people here in this private event. I mean, you had the major regulators and people that are all basically for tokenization and for progress and for moving forward. And they're bringing in thousands of businesses here. They're bringing all kinds of economic development. What's going on in our country?
Very little, unfortunately. I mean, it really is. It's really disappointing. So I testified before Congress about 3 weeks ago on innovation in the United States, and my message basically was our country was built on innovation, not regulation, and they seem to have forgotten that. Everything right now in the United States is being led by regulation. It's being led by fear. It's being led by, I think, a oversensitivity to risk. And people have forgotten that without taking some risk, there is no reward, ever.
Okay, and that's, strange to think about Americans not wanting to take risks. Overall, you've seen the development of Web3 from, its nascent times, and from my perspective, what it seems is that it just makes sense to you.
Right. It does. It makes perfect sense, and even more than that, I think it's just a logical conclusion of where we've been, right? I mean, as computational power has ramped up, as access to the internet has ramped up, as access to new technologies have ramped up, this is where we naturally want to go. And I think everything else or any diversion from that is an unnatural path. So let's just stay on the natural path.
Okay, it makes a lot of sense. Sounds like it's something I would hear from a Duke professor. All right, I got a very important question. Are you Satoshi Nakamoto?
I am not.
Okay. Damn, okay, that's another one, guys.
No, I don't think, it's funny. I talk about that with students all the time. I still teach classes. People always wonder, oh, do you still teach? Yes, of course I still teach. I'm leaving Abu Dhabi tomorrow morning. I will get home to Durham, Chapel Hill, North Carolina, where I live, on Thursday night. On Friday morning, I'm giving final exams.
Boom! That's a true professor right there, y'all. Tell us about higher education. Higher education has become kind of a shit show in the United States. What's going on, man? I mean, the student debt's crazy. I mean, nobody wants to go to university anymore. What can we do about this? What is, when you're in your area of fintech engineering? It seems like what you're doing is empowering a lot of people, helping them with their own university spin out startups, helping them, get the skills and abilities. It seems like you're doing great, and you've got unlimited students and interest in your programs. But what about in general? What's gone wrong, and how can they get it right?
I think people have. It's like a lot of things. People have kind of grasped these name brands, and Duke's a great school. Don't get me wrong. I think there are a lot of schools out there that promote themselves with not a lot in back of them. I am a huge proponent of state schools. I'm share professors with North Carolina State University. Phenomenal professors. Students will come to me and say, "Oh, I didn't get into Duke." Well, there's 50,000, for undergrads, 50,000 applied, 2,000 get accepted. Most people didn't get accepted.
Right. 40,000.
And I'll say, where do you live? Oh, I live in, Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Why aren't you applying to NC State?
Yeah.
But it's not. You know what? It's great. It's a great school. I think people forget that state schools have been around a long time. I went to the first publicly funded university in the United States, University of South Carolina. And I am very proud to have gone there for my undergrad. Went someplace different for grad school. But when you're grad school, you're specializing in things, so it's a little bit different. And I think that in the United States, people have lost track of that. The other thing I think is that for a lot of people, they're there for the grade. They're not there for the education. And those are two totally different things. Mm-hmm. Be there for the education, because after your first job, nobody cares about your grades.
Right. Yeah. And actually, my doctorate degree research proved that. It also showed that people that are willing to go into environments like in developing countries and work on real-world deliverable projects in enterprise actually had gotten better jobs and better interviews than the people that were just focused on an academic side. Now, in that regard, you have some students that or some former students or some current students that have made some spin-outs in Web3 and some cool stuff. Tell us about one of those.
We have had a couple of projects spin out, and two, one I'll tell you about is called Validity, Validity.id, and it's a couple of students, the Mikes, Mike Liu and Mike Kutro. They were funded by Maven Capital out of California, and they have just been going gangbusters. They're using NFTs, but you don't know that, to basically tokenize diplomas. They have a couple of schools that they're working with. They've created a UX that's phenomenal. It's just super smooth. Users have a wallet. They don't even know they have a wallet. It is what I think we need a lot more of in Web3 and in blockchain in general is user interfaces. People have concentrated so much on the tech, they forgot that if people can't use it, they're not going to.
Right, and private keys and all this stuff like that.
They don't. Yeah, the users of this thing don't even know they have a public or private key. They don't have to. And the Mikes spun it out. They were doing a lot of the work while they were still in school, still graduates. Both of them are Master of Engineering and FinTech graduates, and one guy kind of concentrated a little bit more on the tech side. One guy concentrates a little bit more on the sales side, but they can both do either.
Cool.
And so they're off and running. And it's a cool thing. Like I say, they already have customers.
Yeah, multidisciplinary teams, but and also that's really cool and key. But those customers. And the possibility of them developing this, a lot of that is, and we just had Gil Rosen from Stanford Blockchain Founders Fund on Crypto Mondays in New York City. Shout out to Gil, shout out to Stanford, and a lot of these founders, I just met some at COP28, that they wouldn't be able to do it without the university's support. Like, that's how they got their first contact with their first customer that turned into customer and stuff like that. Is that what happened with Validity?
That is what happened with Validity. Their first customer was Duke University. But I'll tell you what,
that's a good customer.
Oh, it's not a terrible customer to have.
But it's a clear one.
They put 10 years worth of diplomas on that because the registrar was so taken with this idea. He actually worked with the students for probably 6 months to fine-tune everything, and then he sent out a note to everybody in the ACC and said, every registrar, you need to get on this. His name is Dr. Frank Blaylark, and he's phenomenal. He has been a huge proponent of them, but he's also been a huge critic. When something goes wrong or when he says this isn't going to work, they listen to him now because he does this for a living. Yeah. And so
been around the block.
He's been around the block, and he said, hey, registrars do not want to do this. They don't want to take those calls. They don't want to fax stuff. They don't want to email stuff. They don't want to do register letters. They don't want to do any of that stuff. That's not what they're there for. And so if you can take this off my plate, you have saved me time. You have saved me money. You have saved me people. Let's do it.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing is, the students own their own diplomas. You know, they own their own diplomas, and that wasn't possible before.
They definitely own their own diplomas. They can easily show them to potential employers. When I first did this, I don't know if you remember, about 3 years ago, I did this, the NFTs for my Coursera students, and I received.
Yeah, that's right.
Remember that?
Yeah.
I was the first university to do it. I didn't even know when I did it. I was the first one. And I received so many notes from people who had been victims of diploma fraud, so many employers. I mean, it was like tons. I thought I was going to get like a lot of notes and DMs and stuff from students who wanted these. No, I was getting them from people who had been victims of diploma fraud. They're like, "How can I help you do this?"
Yeah. And it's not only in universities; it's also in companies and things like that. And I know that Sony was actually an innovator in blockchain and making Japanese certificates because they had so many people that couldn't speak Japanese. They were bogus, like international employees. And so this is a big deal. But what if we've heard of some people's degrees being taken away from them, like certain ministers in Germany and other places. What happens if a person is actually caught plagiarizing 5 years later and we want to take away their degree?
We can do it. We've already done it.
Okay.
Frank has already pulled one back.
Oh.
Yeah. We don't advertise who it was or anything like that, but you can go on the blockchain and you can see it.
Okay. So there's possibilities to that.
Yeah. There is definitely a way to pull it back.
Oh, and Frank gets it done.
Yeah. He does. Well, it was. So that was one of the things that he said when they were doing this, because they didn't know that. They never thought, hey, you can pull diplomas back, and so he said, this is something we have to have. It doesn't happen very often, but when it happens, we have to be able to do it. Okay.
Got to be able to do it. All right. So going forward, do you have hope based on like thinking that Americans are going to wake up and that the regulatory issues are going to be solved to some extent because they're going to see these other people way ahead and they say, oh shit, we need to catch up? Or you think they're going to stay in, oh, we need to try and control the world and have the dollar and we'll be different from everybody else?
Unfortunately, I think that the regulatory systems in the United States go with elections. They've become very political. A lot of the leaders are political appointees, and so every administration is going to be a little bit different. My hope is that we can look at places like Abu Dhabi, see how the regulators work here. The regulators work here. So for people that don't know, and they should kind of check this out a little bit. But for people that don't know, in Abu Dhabi, under the regulator is also basically a business development person that has the same kind of role as the head regulator.
Right.
And so they are thinking, how do we regulate in a way that brings business in? Yeah, which is awesome.
Yeah, so it's a counter perspective.
Yep.
It's not just this, I'm going to regulate the shit out of you, like the Gary Gensler or whatever. It's like, hey, there's another person that is going to be a counter perspective. Wait a second, we got to think about the business side. How do we? And the regulators, wait a second, we got to control this to some extent.
Exactly. How do we do this?
A bit.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, it's a cool thing to be able to do, and so I'm hoping that what we can do is we can start looking at some of these places that are a little bit more progressive, and we can say, hey, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Maybe we can do that in the healthcare system too. Maybe we can do that with student debt too.
Let's not go too crazy.
One thing at a time, right? Let's get Bitcoin and then we'll see where we can go from there, man.
Exactly.
All right, man. So great. Let's just let us know if there's going to be something coming up at Duke. Are you going to have a conference? Tell us what's going on, man.
So Digital Assets at Duke in Durham, North Carolina, will take place from January 31st till February 2nd. It'll be much like last year. A lot of people from industry, a lot of regulators come in. Regulators will be speaking on panels. We have some academics there. We'll have some students there. It'll be a little bit bigger than last year, but it's not huge. It's only about 250 people. We limit it to that. We like to do it like discussions, kind of like we did here. We like to have a lot of discussions with audience and people that are coming in and speaking. And if it gets too big, you just can't do that. So registration's open. It's just you can go to the website. It's digitalassets@duke.org. We had a pretty pretty big waiting list last year, so if you're interested, do it early. It is in Durham, North Carolina, on Duke's campus at Duke University, and it's a fun time.
Okay.
It really is. It's a good time.
So, all our Crypto Mondays people in New York and Washington, D.C. and Boston, all over in the Northeast region, I mean, Duke's, North Carolina is a great place to go. And, of course, they got lucky and got the best basketball coach of all time, Roy Williams, who they took from Kansas. I'm a KU fan, so shout out to KU. But I can't hate Duke, even though they're our arch enemy. In basketball, Jimmie Lenz is leading the way in academia for Web3 and crypto adoption and blockchain innovation. So I can't be against Duke because they got Jimmie Lenz. All right, and we love Roy Williams anyways, man. Hey, thanks a lot for the time.
I really appreciate it.